Greetings and welcome to another episode coming to you from the Thought Exchange Cafe. Here at the Thought Exchange Cafe, we like to bring you motivational, inspirational, and educational content that may help you in your daily life and in your daily journey, coming from a personal perspective, but not just from a personal perspective, but also we like to share quotes with you that may help you to get over that hurdle, or as they say, take it one day at a time. And some days you just have to take it 1 minute at a time, 5 minutes at a time, 1 hour at a time, just to get through the day. Because our days can be consumed with internal chaos. And that internal chaos can start with a negative thought. That internal chaos can start off with someone looking at you the wrong way. That internal chaos can start off by just getting up late in the morning or having so many things going on in your life. And some of those things you have no control over. And when we have no control over exterior things, yes, it could become very overwhelming. It could cause some folks to go into isolation. And I, for one, can talk about going into that isolation mode because there was so many things on the external that was pushing on me, that was weighing on me, that it between the bills, work, and just trying to do the best I can to live on a daily basis and dealing with everybody's wants and everybody's needs and not meeting everybody's wants and everybody's needs and not realizing, right, that I can't meet everybody's needs until my needs are met. And some of those needs were my emotional needs. I had to begin to learn how to I had to begin to learn some emotional intelligence. I had to begin to learn how to slow down and start asking myself some questions. And one of those questions I had to ask myself, where did this feeling come from? Where did it originate from? And what is it doing for me now? And more so, if I decide to isolate and do nothing, what happens? It continues to get larger because I haven't confronted it. As someone said, in order for energy to get going or to create energy, I have to get up and I have to begin to move. And by getting up and beginning to move, I begin to create an energy. But also, not just that energy, I have to begin to think differently just as well too. So there's a couple things I'm going to discuss on this episode. One is creating space for growth. Two is realizing and knowing when to say no. And last but not least, continuing to work on self. And I want to get into creating space for growth. And why is that so important? It's so important that I've learned that I got to create space and time for me because I can recall a time giving everything that I had and having nothing for myself, wanting to please everybody. But in pleasing everybody, I was the one in the end being disappointed. And why is that? Because every time somebody asked me to do something, I would say, okay, I'm coming. Because I didn't want to let that person down. But in reality, I was letting myself down because I was choosing not to do those things that was going to help me to grow or to strengthen me internally because I was too busy giving my time to others. Now, it's okay to share your time. It's okay to give your time. And for me, it took a long time to understand that I had to stop and make room for me. Because if I don't stop and make room for me, I can spread myself too thin and be walking on rice paper and fall through. And have I had that experience? Yes, I have had that experience. In some of my previous episodes, I talked about addiction. I talked about alcoholism. I talked about drugs. I talked about the fear of success. I talked about suppression. And a lot of that came from not creating space for myself to grow. And by giving everything that I had and not having anything for myself to fall back on, I became internally weak. And not just internally weak, I became physically weak, spiritually weak, and emotionally weak. And I had to begin to learn how to step back and begin to put me first. And in putting me first, I was called selfish. I was called egotistical. I was told that, that I'm on some new stuff because people didn't understand. They didn't understand that I needed some space. I needed some time for me. Because if you give me that time for myself and allow me to grow and to rebalance and get back spiritually strong, I'm going to be that much better for you. But it wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. I have to bring it back full circle. It was my fault because every time they called me, I was there. I didn't have it in me to say no. Why? Because I had become so accustomed to saying yes. And is that part of people pleasing? Yes, it is. It was part of people pleasing because I didn't want nobody to dislike me. I didn't want no one to talk about me. But in reality, you can't please all the people all the time anyway. And then I had to start saying, I can't do that today. I had to stop answering the phone. I had to stop responding to messages until I was ready to respond to that message because I needed to go back and get me back on track, as they say. And getting yourself back on track, don't we can't worry about them other people who don't care because guess what? As Les Brown said in a quote, and he says that 80% of people don't care, and 20% of people is glad that it's you. And ask me, is that factual? Yes, it is factual. I want to share something with you. And it's a quote by Khalil Gibran, the prophet. Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. And some of us have some very deep scars. Some of us have been through some things that we don't even want to talk to anyone about. Some of us have, some of us are still going through that inner chaos, that inner turmoil within self, but smiling on the outside. But when we go to the inside, we feel that pain. And sometimes we can wear that pain upon our sleeve. One thing I had to learn, as I said, here at the Thought Exchange Cafe, we're all about motivation, inspiration, and education, giving some perspectives on some of the things that we went through. And let me just say some of the things that I've been through and how I overcame that internal chaos, how I overcame that fear of saying no, but also the fear of people talking about me. Because regardless of what, people are going to talk about you when you're doing good. People are going to talk about you when you're doing bad. But the most important perspective is the one that I have of myself. The most important perspective is the one that you have for yourself because it's your life, it's your journey. It's okay for us to share. It's okay for us to want to give to another. But what I had to learn is that I can only give from what flows over from my cup. I can't continue giving from the cup because the more I give from the cup and my cup begin to get empty, now I begin to walk on rice paper. And that rice paper is not a nice walk because it's almost like walking across an icy river or icy ocean because you don't know where the soft spots are. So, I choose not to do that today. And you see, I said choose because I had to learn that I have a choice. I have a choice. I have a choice to engage, and I have a choice not to engage. And we're going to get back. We're going to get to that in a few minutes just as well, too. And the next thing I want to talk about is realizing and knowing when to say no, saying no to the good and yes to the best. I had to begin to start saying no. And saying no wasn't something that I was accustomed to because I was so familiar with saying yes. Because inside of me, in my mind, I'm thinking if I said no, they're going to dislike me. If I said no, then they may give it to someone else. Not realizing, right, that every time I said yes, I was saying no to myself. I was saying no to the most important person because you are the most important person. And I am the most important person because guess what? If something happens to you or to me today, they're going to find someone else to do what it is that they need them to do. And it's true that we mourn, but we can only mourn for a time before we have to get back to this thing that we call life and all the pressures of life and all the exterior wantings and needings of this thing that we call life to the point where we only mourn for a little while. Then the next thing you know, the person only becomes a thought. And that's the same thing about you and I. After a while, we only become a thought because they have to think about those other things which are in front of them that they have to tackle. So I had to begin to understand who is the most important person and what I must do for the most important person. And one thing I had to learn how to do is to say no. No to the good and yes to the best. And there's a saying, I'm sure you've heard it, that all money is not good money. And how true is that? Because money flows. Money is not meant to be held. And the more we hold money, the less money we get. The more we hold the money, right? The more we want. And in wanting, we become discouraged because we don't have enough. We don't never have enough. We don't never have enough. And that can cause internal chaos. And why does it cause internal chaos? Because now we're worried about the bills. We're worried about our car note. We're worried about how are we going to stay abreast of things. And yes, money is important, but you're the most important person because without you, you can't earn the money. A lot of people say, go and make that money, go and make that money. How are we going to go make some money? We're not the mint. We don't print it. We have to go out and we have to use energy and time to go out and to earn that money. And when we use our energy and our time to go out to earn that money, then we got to turn around and use more energy and more time to pay the bills with the money. So, and I'm saying this from my perspective, right? Is that I had to begin to say no to some things. And one of those things I had to start saying no to was chasing. Because the more I chased, I never had enough. The more I chased, the less time I had for building me. The less time I had to say yes to the best. And what is the best? For me, I had to learn that the more I know, the further I go. Self-investment. Self-investment. I had to get into self-investing in myself. And what I mean by investing in myself. In one of my other previous episodes, I talked about enjoying sunrises and sunsets. Because, I realized that I'm human. And once again, like I said, I'm no better than anyone else. I have a beginning, a middle, and an ending. And how do I want to live in my present day life? At this particular stage in my life, I have more years behind me than I do in front of me. However, I want the years that I have in front of me to be some of my best years. And in order to do that, I have to learn how to say no to the good and yes to the best. And I'm saying to you, begin to start saying no to the good and yes to the best, which is you. Begin to get some self-investment. Begin to carve out some time and some space for you. For you. Begin to alleviate some of that internal chaos. And remember, there are certain things we have no control over. We have no control over politics. We have no control over those that are on Capitol Hill or Washington or even our governors and mayors. We have no control over the decisions or the choices that they make. We only have control over the decisions and choices that we decide to make for ourselves. If we engage, when we engage, we decide to take on whatever it is that we decided to engage in. If we decide to not engage, we decide to do something different with our time and with our flow. Because in engaging in certain situations, you're saying yes. You're saying yes to that situation. And when you say yes to that situation, right, you agree to whatever comes along with that. Your time, your energy, and your space. And your time and your energy and your space, you could never get that back. And I had to learn that my time, my energy, and my space is my time, my energy, and my space. And then I had to begin to learn how to make a pie chart in my mind, all right? And divvy up, just like that pizza. Sometimes, you get 8 slices of pizza in a box. And if you give away all 8 slices of the pizza, all you got left is the crust. And the crust is not, and it's only little pieces of crust. And that crust is not going to fill you. And the empty box is just going to be the empty box. So I had to learn how to, like I said, make that pie chart and say, this is for me, half, and these other 4 pieces I'm willing to share. And just from my perspective, once again, maybe you ought to begin to make yourself a pie chart. And in that pie chart, take half of that pie for yourself. Take half of that pizza for yourself. And the other 4 pieces you can share. Because after you have your 3 or 4 pieces and you're full, then you have another piece that you will be able to share on another day. But don't give it all away in one setting. Last but not least, continue to work on self. Self-investment is the best investment. In taking time to invest in myself, one thing I did was I decided I was going to go back to school. And I went to MIT. And at MIT, I took a course, and the course was Persuasive Communication, Critical Thinking in Order to Enhance the Message. And at first, I was like, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. And do I really want to do this? And I had to say yes to myself. I had to say yes to the best. And the best was me. And no to the good. And that no was not thinking that I couldn't do it. Self-limiting beliefs. Because it's been so long that I was in school. Okay. And here I am, once again, like I said, I have more years behind me than I do in front of me. But I want those years in front of me to be my best years. But I did it anyway. And today I'm certified out of MIT, Persuasive Communication, Critical Thinking in order to enhance the message. And I'm grateful that I chose to invest in myself. Because by investing in myself, I sit here in front of you, sharing my message with you, or part of my story with you. And if you go back and you take some time to look back some of my previous episodes where I shared some of my story, some good, some not so bad, overcoming challenges, overcoming the addictive cycle, overcoming fear and doubt, that internal chaos. And that internal chaos can disrupt your life. That one moment of internal chaos could send you into a spiral. That one bad thought, that one bad phone call, that one bad incident could change your life forever. And like I said, I'm talking from personal perspective. I'm talking from a place of realness. I'm talking from a place of personal experiences. Because see, it is only through God's grace and his mercy that I sit here in front of you. And yes, I give God thanks because I believe that there is a higher source. I believe that the universe is real. I believe in energy, frequency, and vibration. Because without it, there's no me and there's no you. Just like the four elements. We have to have the sun and the moon. We have to have the earth and the water. We have to have fire. All those things give us life. All those things give us sustenance. And what's one of the biggest ones? Air, the air that we breathe. I want to say this to you in closing, is that if you're not counting how many breaths that you're taking right now, then you're lucky. Because there are some who are counting their breaths and praying that they have more than one left. If that is not you, like Les Brown said, if you woke up and there's no chalk line around your body, then you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to overcome that internal chaos. You have an opportunity to overcome that internal chaos by having some positive talk for yourself, by getting away from those people or those things that is causing the chaos. And I want to let you know that sometimes the loudest voice is not the one in the room. Sometimes the loudest voice is the one in our own minds. And sometimes it can be hard shutting that voice off. I want to share something else with you. Between suffering and strength, rather than portraying hardship as a purely negative force, it frames adversity as a process that contributes to inner resilience and depth of character. And what is resilience? Resilience is being able to bounce back from a fall. And what I had to learn is that I had to go back to being childlike, because a child is going to fall many times in their pursuit to find balance, in their pursuit to walk. And they're going to fall, but they're going to continue to get up. They may cry a little bit. They may roll around and have these little tantrums. But guess what? They're going to get up. And there's another quote, and I don't know, I can't remember who quoted this quote, but it says, if you fall down, make sure you fall on your back so you can get up. And if you fall 1,000 times, get up 1,001. And I want to share one other thing with you. And it's out of don't sweat the small stuff. And it's all small stuff. Simple ways to keep the little things from taking over your life. Richard Carlson, PhD. And it's an amazing read. And I would urge you to check it out. Check it out. And I want to read you something off of page 34. Practice random acts of kindness. There is a bumper sticker that has been out for some time now. You see it on cars all across the nation. In fact, I have one on my own car. It says, practice random acts of kindness and senseless acts of beauty. I have no idea who thought of this idea, but I've never seen a more important message on a car in front of me. Practicing random kindness is an effective way to get in touch with the joy of giving without expecting anything in return. It's best practice without letting anyone know what you are doing. In practicing random acts of kindness in the midst of our chaos, but I've learned that in the midst of my chaos, in the midst of my indecision, in the midst of my fear and my doubt, in the midst of me going through, it is at that time, it's the best time for me to help another person. It's the best time for me to ask someone, is they okay? Because by helping them, I'm helping myself. By being kind to them, I'm being kind to myself. And by being kind to myself, as another speaker said, when you want the darkness to disappear, all you have to do is just open up the blinds. Try it sometime. I did, and it worked for me. If you're in a world of chaos right now, and everything around you seems like it's just not going your way, this could just be a test of the broadcast systems. Do the best you can to remove yourself from negative people, negative things, negative places. Find some inner peace within yourself. Go someplace quiet, pray, meditate, and just be grateful for all the little things that you have and all the little things that you have been given, because there's another quote that says, when you become content with what you have, you open up the door for more. We're all going to face some internal battles, even from the richest to the poorest. We're all facing some type of internal battle, some internal chaos. And in order to overcome the chaos, one thing that I had to do, I had to start saying no to the good and yes to the best. I had to start creating some space and some time to rebalance, to refocus, to get back recentered. And I want to say to you that I hope that you will do the same if you're in that world of chaos. Because once again, it could just be a test. And if it is a test, because we go through tests every day, and life is going to test us. Nobody said to me that life was going to be easy. But what I do understand today is that by being resilient, bouncing back, by not allowing every little pitfall, every little harmful thing that has been said to me to linger in my mind. I had to learn how to get out of the loop of the past and get into my present moment and have some gratitude for what I have right now. So once again, in closing, I want to thank you for your time, because your time is very important. Your energy is very important. Your space is very important. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Thought Exchange Cafe. I look forward to you joining me on some future episodes. And if there was anything that resonated with you from this content, I urge you to respond, reply, or just send a thumbs up, because your thumbs up goes a long way. But also, let me know what other content that you would like to hear. And more so, if you think that you have something to give to someone, because we all have something to give, because you're not going through what you're going through just for yourself. Sometimes it's for that next person that's going to be going through, and they're not going to know how to get over that hurdle. And you've been there, you've had that experience. So now it's time for you to share. In life, we learn, we earn, and we pass it on. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about knowledge and experience, because it's your knowledge and your experience that's going to help someone else overcome that hurdle. But also, you're going to help them overcome the internal chaos. Once again, my name is Tony Davis. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Thought Exchange Cafe. And I look forward to your comments, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until then, peace and joy.